Hello my friends, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for daily content. Addiction to dopamine, how to overcome dopamine addiction. Because of the powerful feelings associated with dopamine, addiction can happen quickly. This fact has been used as an argument that dopamine itself is what's addictive, rather than the drugs or behaviors that cause a surge in this important neurotransmitter. To find the answer to whether addiction to dopamine is real, you need to understand both the role of dopamine in the brain and what addiction is. Depression and dopamine changes that go with it are often implicated in addictions. Getting to the bottom of the debate requires understanding what addiction is and the role dopamine plays in the brain. The American Society of Addiction Medicine adds to this definition that addiction is a chronic brain disease involving the reward, memory, and motivation system, but that addiction involves other parts of the brain as well. It is a dysfunction within this system that causes addiction. Addiction can happen with both substances and behaviors that are misused or overused. It gives us the feeling of reward for behaviors we do. When suffering from an addiction such as drug addiction, this reward/motivation system is triggered. We're more likely to go after what we want and feel rewarded when we achieve it. In a way, it is, but more scientifically, what we seek is substances or behaviors that give it to us. It's these substances and behaviors we're addicted to, not the dopamine itself. Having an overabundance of dopamine has been linked to mental conditions such as schizophrenia. This is a complex condition that involves many parts of the brain, which are dysfunctional. However, this overabundance is the result of an overproduction of dopamine, not the fact that you're addicted to or craving dopamine. Does addiction to dopamine cause physical and mental disorders? Some mental and physical conditions are associated with problems in the dopamine system. The subject of dopamine and addiction is complex, and it's likely different for different conditions. Addiction to dopamine and depression. However, dopamine isn't likely the only neurotransmitter involved if you have depression. Depression and dopamine changes that go with it are often implicated in addictions. That's why dopamine antidepressants such as bupropion can help with addiction as well as depression. The depression-dopamine connection, then, plays a part in the treatment of many different conditions, particularly addictions. This means the dopamine transmissions are fewer and milder, leading to memory problems. Behaviors that trigger dopamine production. The actual addiction to dopamine is debated. Addiction is a process that can happen with both substances and behaviors that are chronically misused or overused. After a series of arguments on substance use disorder, scientists have come to support that most people are addicted to specific actions and feelings of pleasure. To better understand this argument, you must first understand some of the most common behaviors that trigger dopamine production. Dopamine feel pleasure while you're viewing it, but that reward isn't as great as that of anticipation. Examples of dopamine and how it is triggered by external stimulus. Dopamine transporter levels go down as pornography use increases. You take cocaine, you feel good, at least for a while, thanks to the release of dopamine. Over time, your dopamine system begins to change and your dopamine receptors decrease for cocaine rewards. In other words, with more cocaine use, your brain no longer releases as much dopamine as it once did. This means cocaine dopamine dysfunction changes your brain chemistry and need in the long term. If you get to this point, treatment is crucial to deal with the addiction and return your dopamine system to its equilibrium. Long-term marijuana use affects the dopamine reward system in a way that decreases motivation. All drugs of abuse affect dopamine levels in the nucleus accumbens, a part of the brain activated during the dopamine system's anticipatory reward response. Alcohol and dopamine responses in the dopamine pathway for non-drug rewards diminish as the addiction progresses. As the dopamine system changes over time, the levels of dopamine released will decrease, requiring more and more alcohol to get the feel-good feeling you once got. Although the exact mechanisms of dopamine, addiction, and other conditions aren't all known yet, what we do know is that healthy people have a stable and well-functioning dopamine system. Regardless of whether you are addicted to dopamine or the behavior that produces dopamine, you can win your battle against addiction like many before you. How to overcome an addiction to dopamine? Overcoming addiction to dopamine differs from one person to another. Here are a few different ways that you can work toward overcoming your addiction. Triggers, both emotional and environmental, are those things that can cause you to relapse in your battle against addiction. Support systems play a crucial role in overcoming addiction as they give you a means of surrounding yourself with healthy individuals, give you healthy peer pressure, and give you the support you need when you find yourself struggling with triggers. Exercise has many benefits when you are trying to overcome addiction. It can serve as a distraction, give you another means of feeling pleasure. Stress is one of the most common triggers for relapse, so finding ways to manage your stress should be one of your first steps when working toward overcoming addiction. Common ways to manage stress include yoga, mindfulness meditation, acupuncture, massage therapy, and getting proper rest. Another option that can help you overcome addiction to dopamine is therapy. Psychotherapy changes the brain structure and can be effective in restoring balance in the dopamine system. Exercise has many benefits when you are trying to overcome addiction. It can serve as a distraction, give you another means of feeling pleasure. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to push the subscribe button.